You are tuning in to Renewed Day by Day with Pastor Ralph LaRosa. Let us continue our lesson called The Super Sign of the End Time.
Let's look at the birth of the modern state of Israel described by Dr. David Jeremiah. Dr. David Jeremiah. He's also a Dallas graduate. He's 81 years old now, but he's still pastoring in Southern California and San Diego. So let's take a look at it. This is his description. May 14th, 1948 was a pivotal day in human history. On that afternoon, a car carrying Jewish leader David Ben-Gurion rushed down Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv and stopped at the Tel Aviv Art Museum. 4 o'clock was only minutes away, and inside, Jewish leaders and press representatives from all over the world were assembled in an auditorium awaiting his arrival. Ben-Gurion bounded up the steps. Precisely at 4 o'clock local time, he stepped to the podium and called the meeting to order and read these historical words. This right is the natural right of the Jewish people to be masters of their own fate, like all other nations, in their own sovereign state. Accordingly, we are here assembled, and by virtue of our natural and historical right, and on the strength, listen, this is important, makes it legal, of the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, to be known as the State of Israel. So that's when Israel was born. Now, what is also important, at that time the United States was a superpower. 6,000 miles away, President Truman, Harry Truman, sat in the Oval Office reading a statement. He signed his approval and noted the time, 6:10 p.m. 1 minute later, the White House press secretary read the released words to the world. The United States had officially recognized the birth of the modern nation of Israel. And I really believe that's one of the reasons our country was blessed during that time. This is a promise in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. And we have been blessed as a nation because we've stood by Israel since that day on May 14th, 1948. 74 years of war and growth. The very next day, Arab nations attacked them, and they were almost annihilated. And they've had one war after the other, but they've survived for these 74 years. And they've grown like few nations have ever grown. Here's a continuation of that description. In the past 7 decades, this tiny nation, now with a population of, I think it's more than this, 8.5 million, and maybe over 9 million now, has become the geopolitical center of the world. Why is this so? Why is a fledgling country, remember, we're talking about 74 years, take the United States, they're over 200 years old. The Roman Empire lasted for a long time. So why is this so? Why is a fledgling country with a total land space smaller than New Jersey, that's one of our smaller states in the U.S., mentioned in the nightly news, listen to this is a fact, more than any other nation except the United States? It is amazing what has happened in Israel, and I'm only going to give you a little bit today. Let's talk about the church in Israel in these last days. To answer these questions, we must understand what happened on that day in 1948 and what is happening today in Israel and how these events affect the entire world. And they do. They affect the entire world. And again, we have to have the application of the balanced Christian life in the study of Bible prophecy. Yes, you can get off course in Bible prophecy. You can get off balance. And we must not overlook what is truly a Bible prophecy, and yet we must not say certain things are fulfilled, set dates, and so on, if it's not there. But we are to be alert, and we are to be up on current history and what's happening around the world. Okay, let's look at the church in these last days. In Hebrews, one of the reasons, and that's I'm trusting that this will change at GMF. One of the reasons this is so hard to teach and it gets discouraging to teach, listen to Hebrews 5:11. We have much to say about this. There's so much information available, but it's hard to explain because you're slow to learn. And I don't believe it's because of a low IQ or you can't learn. I believe many people are so distracted about so many things that they become dull of hearing. And remember Romans 10:17, and by the way, Speaker Marvin taught on this not too long ago. Romans 10:17 says, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And it says to study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. It takes time. It takes discipline. And I believe many, they won't invest the time. They become dull of hearing. Listen to Hebrews 5:14. But solid food, and Bible prophecy is a part of that, is for the mature, who and this is something that is so important because there's so much information out there. There's so much confusion and so many conflicting views, who by constant use, in other words, of the skills that God gives us, the spiritual information, the resources, He gives us a spiritual IQ. I'm not talking about your IQ, that humanly speaking. I'm talking about something that God gives you. By constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil. And we have a lot of help to do that. And this is important. That's why we have teaching elders, and I'm trusting that God will raise them up. And they'll train themselves to distinguish what's true and what's false. So let's take a look at the balance of Bible prophecy demands a disciplined life. And here's something that's really, really important to understand. We don't learn Bible prophecy just so we can say we know Bible prophecy and we know more than other people. The purpose of Bible prophecy, one of the purposes is, I can remember the first time I studied Ezekiel's War by Dr. Jack Van Ippy in 1970 on a big record. Okay, there were none of the modern devices we have today. And I just said, the Bible is the Word of God. And I did nothing but want to prepare myself. And also, it gives you a desire to see others come to Christ, evangelism. And then we began to look at current events from a biblical perspective. And we don't have to become fanatics or off balance. We still have to take care of our family. We still have to do all of these things. But we have to discipline ourselves to learn these things.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel for the last part of our lesson here in Renewed Day by Day with Pastor Ralph LaRosa. God bless you and stay healthy.